I'll be interested to see if this video gets any views at all. By rights, it wouldn't. That's funny because I've put some important bits of information in here. Alright, like this kind of is evidence to support that, like, whether or not they're coming for the fuel mowers is really not even a bloody conversation. They're coming for your ute. Economy strategy to both reach net zero and support our ambition for a future made in Australia. You don't give a shit about that. I've figured out, guys. The mining industry, they ain't shit. They're boring. They've got no ambition. They're not actually doing anything. They just want their paycheck. Alright, be prepared for the worst sounding video of your life. We're gonna go through a learning phase. We're gonna learn something today. I put this post up, right? Ban leaf blowers, and I've intelligently said it's stupid that banning leaf mowers is even in discussion. So Tim the lawnmower man mentioned this, and that made me cranky. Then, into the comments, I like that I've curated people that push back. Pointed out not to take Tim's video seriously. It's clickbait, just fake crap, and actually pay attention to these comments because the assholes of the world will tell you when you're stupid. Alright, so we're going to go over here. We're going to look at the net zero plan. Alright, and then I've got another document that I want to show you. So, this is the government's plan to have net zero carbon emissions by 2050. Australia and the world are undergoing the biggest and fastest economic transformation since the Industrial Revolution. Action to reduce emissions will help prevent the worst impacts of climate change, but will also create a boom in new jobs and new industries. The government's ambition for a future made in Australia will form a comprehensive, coordinated, and practical strategy to seize these opportunities. As the path to net zero will require innovation and investment across all sectors, the Australian government is continuing to take major steps to realise the opportunities of an efficient, productive, high-wage, net zero economy and make Australia a renewable energy superpower. Bullshit. The Australian government's net zero plan will lay out and extend Australia's action on climate change. Australia, along with all parties to the Paris Agreement, has committed to the global goal of holding the increase in global average temperatures to well below 2% of warming and pursuing efforts to keep warming to less than 1.5 degrees. So, I should point out, my problem with this is we're gonna fail. There's nothing we can do about it. Even if it's man-made, there's nothing we can do about it. And everyone's abandoned this agreement, right? Australia and Paris can't pull the world out of this. Anyway, let's keep going. The net zero plan will guide our transition to the legislated target of net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. The plan will cover all major parts of the economy. It will articulate Australia's transition to net zero. The plan will be consistent with our international and domestic commitments. Bear with me. It will set out government priorities, establish policies and measures to drive down emissions and support ongoing and new investment in low emissions and renewable activities. Alongside the net zero plan, the Australian government will set an ambitious and achievable 2035 emissions reduction target. This will mean Australia is accelerating climate action consistent with our global peers. I'll have to build the list of the global peers so that I can really make a comparison that people can see. Anyway, the net zero plan will build on the government's current emissions reduction policies. Some examples include safeguard mechanism, renewable electricity target, capacity investment scheme, and new vehicle efficiency standard. I'm going to get back to the new vehicle efficiency standard in a second, alright? Because it applies to something I found out to do with, I don't know, fuel-powered fucking mowers. So, Australia's 2024 emissions projections show these policies put Australia's emissions on track to reach 42.7% below 2005 levels by 2030. This decrease puts us just shy of our legislated 2030 target of 43% below 2005 levels. The net zero plan will support the government's broader policy agenda, including its ambition for a future made in Australia. Right, so, I want to point something out real quick. Alright, don't think anything concerning popped up. So, I found this, right? And this is one of the fucking reports that Victoria is using to be able to drive down emissions. And it's directly relevant to what we were just talking about. Alright. Okay. Bear with me. What is this? Why won't let... That's a video. There's a fucking video. Alright. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. Over to this one. Oh, here it is. Driving down emissions. Accelerating Victoria's zero-emission vehicle uptake. This is really important. Bear with me. I'm not a fucking presenter, but I am today. Okay, alright. So this is the key findings to inform Victoria's Infrastructure Strategy 2021 to 2051. In Victoria, cars are responsible for over half of the state's transport emissions. Transport is the state's second biggest contributor to greenhouse gases, and while in most sectors emissions are declining, transport emissions are increasing. Climate change, driven by these greenhouse gas emissions, is one of the biggest threats to our future as communities around the world are responding to its current and expected impacts. The Victorian government has joined the global call to action to setting a legislated target of reaching net zero emissions by 2050. This target will not be reached if Victoria's transport emissions continue to rise. To assist the government in its efforts to plan for and minimise the risks posed by climate change, Infrastructure Australia has investigated opportunities to drive down emissions in the transport sector. The purpose of this report is to share our research on what will be the most effective way to reduce Victoria's transport emissions, transitioning the current petrol and diesel vehicle fleet to low and zero emission vehicles. Following extensive research, analysis and consultation, we have outlined priority actions the Victorian government can take to encourage a greater uptake of ZEVSs, including a ban on the sale of new petrol and diesel vehicles from the early 2030s. I'm going to repeat that again. Alright, we've outlined priority actions the Victorian government can take to encourage a greater uptake of fucking electric vehicles, including a ban on the sale of new petrol and diesel vehicles from the early 2030s. So, keyword there, new petrol and diesel vehicles. So, arguments will come up that this only applies to the brand new fucking diesel vehicles coming out, or fuel vehicles coming out, which is bullshit anyway. That's not good enough anyway. But anyway, let's keep going. Widespread electrical car uptake has the potential to not only result in significant emission reductions in Victoria and help reach the net zero target by 2050, but also deliver hundreds of millions of dollars every year in health and environmental benefits to the community. This is also bullshit. I don't want to go down the rabbit hole too far, but I'm gonna have to. So, this is always scary. Let's go to this one. I've decided that these guys ain't shit, they're pussies. But anyway, right. World Economic Forum, their Agenda 2030. Alright, so this just talks about what they think is, the biggest threats to their agenda. And the agenda is just, let's fucking make a nice world and less pollution on surface level. Alright, blah blah blah. COVID pandemic set us back totally. Bear with me, so I don't know. In 2015, they agreed to cement 3 pillars of sustainable development: economic advancement, social progress, and environmental sustainability. So all of this bullshit kind of starts in 2015. If you think these guys actually have any influence. I don't know. What do I want to show you? Okay. Global findings released in March 2023 by Civicus Monitor, a research collaboration to measure fundamental civic freedoms of peaceful assembly, association, and expression involving more than 20 organizations around the world, reveal that only 3.2% of the world's population live in countries with open or enabling civic space. Conversely, 28% of the world's people live in 27 countries with completely closed civic spaces. Right, so it thinks the world is good or bad based on the protection protesters have, which is normally okay. There's a hell of a lot of protesters calling for the literal destruction of the West and, death to colonizers. So I think they should care about, like, the gay kids in fucking Saudi Arabia getting stoned to death. Maybe they care about that. But they don't give a shit about that, funnily enough. Anyway. Our findings track the range of tactics being used to restrict civic freedoms. The top kinds of violations tracked in 2022 are harassment and intimidation of activists, journalists, and civic society organizations to deter them from their work to protect and advance rights. Arbitrary detentions of protesters as punishment for speaking out against government's failures. And restrictive laws designed to prevent people mobilizing and exercising their fundamental civic freedoms. So, this is fine. This is cool to support this. And this isn't even the point of why I came over to the World Health Organization. How is this the biggest fucking concern for social cohesion? Right? Like, maybe separate church from state, because all 3 of the big religions are monotheistic and call for anyone that believes in any other god, right? Maybe, why don't they pursue that over protecting fucking protesters? Hot words. Alright, look. Point I was getting to. How is the World Economic Forum improving the global financial system? The financial services industry is facing several future risks, including vulnerabilities to cyber attacks. And remember, this is how they're improving the global system. Okay, so they're talking about cyber attacks, which is just like a problem, not a solution. The World Economic Forum Center for Financial and Monetary Systems works with the public and private sectors to design more sustainable, resilient, and trusted and accessible financial systems worldwide. So, their plan is net zero future. Our Financing the Transition to a Net Zero Future initiative is accelerating capital mobilization in support of breakthrough decarbonisation technologies to help transition the global economy to net zero emissions. So they think that is going to improve the global financial system. Right, like again, I don't mind meeting in the fucking middle, okay? Net zero emissions, if we could do it without destroying the world, would be great. But it isn't going to improve the global financial system. It's got to wreck it. Okay, if you want fucking lubricant for your bearings, then you need oil. And then, yeah, they're fucking financing biodiversity. That's how they're going to fix our system. But, I mean, this is important, right? The reason this is important because they've set the net zero future, right? The 2030 goal and the 2050 goal seemingly has come from the World Economic Forum, which I really should mention, by the way. Klaus Schwab quit. He's not a part of it. I don't know what to make of that. But he quit. You know, he's not a part of this anymore. Klaus Schwab isn't behind the World Economic Forum, apparently. I think that was just a conspiracy we bought into. Anyway, okay, so back to this. Widespread. To assist the government in its efforts to plan for and minimise the risks posed by climate change, Infrastructure Australia has investigated opportunities to drive down emissions. I already read that part. Widespread electronic car uptake has the potential to not only result in significant emission reductions in Victoria and help reach the net zero target by 2050, but also deliver hundreds of millions of dollars every year in health and environmental benefits to the community. I want them to give a tangible definition to environmental benefits to the community. How does that result in millions of dollars? Anyway, at the same time, accelerating the uptake of electric vehicles to ensure Victoria does not get behind the rest of the world in one of the most significant transformations. My God, I'm speaking like retard. In transport since the emergence of the internal combustion engine. Bullshit. I love electric engines. There's 5 parts to them. I can understand 5 parts. That's why I love them. They're not good for any other reason unless you want acceleration. Right, that's about it. Anyway. We recognise there are other ways to reduce transport emissions, which must also be pursued, such as getting more people on public transport, walking and cycling. But for many Victorians, cars are essential, and this reliance on private vehicles will likely continue into the future. By transitioning the vehicle fleet, especially cars, to EVs, Victorians can reduce their greenhouse gas emissions, enjoy the environmental and health benefits associated with cleaner air, and reduce the cost of driving and maintaining their vehicle. Bullshit. Bullshit. It's not going to reduce the cost. To do this, there are some barriers that need to be overcome. This is where we need to pay attention to this part. The priority actions outlined in this report address the main barriers to EV uptake, being purchase price, access to charging infrastructure, and driving range anxiety. They don't mention the fires, which are the biggest deterrents for consumers when considering an electric car. Additionally, manufacturers and consumers are caught up in a supply and demand cycle, whereby manufacturers may be reluctant to bring zero-emissions vehicle models to Australia without further encouragement of their uptake and a clear strategy. This is important, right, because they will further encouragement of their uptake, while consumers are unlikely to make the switch due to limited options. To understand how the Victorian government could overcome these barriers and promote EV uptake in Victoria, we sought the views of everyday Victorians through an online deliberative engagement process, the largest of its kind in Victoria. 211 people from a range of age groups, cultural backgrounds, employment statuses, and postcodes. This is funny. I need to say this part again, because this is stupid. I can run a better study, in the comments section. Okay, so, to understand how the Victorian government could overcome these barriers and promote EV uptake in Victoria, we sought the views of everyday Victorians through an online deliberative engagement process. Look, the only people doing online polls are people doing online polls. That's not every day. So the solutions came from 211 random Victorians. Alright, so how should the Victorian government support more people to adopt lower zero-emission vehicles sooner? Was asked 211 people. The insights from this process, coupled with a growing body of evidence based on policy approaches taken by governments around the World Economic Forum, point to a series of clear, concrete actions the Victorian government can take right now, as well as informing a longer-term strategy. So they're pretending this is coming from the 211 random people they asked, and it just so happens to align exactly with the policy and approaches taken by governments around the world. Alright, anyway, Victoria is already heading in the right direction to overcome barriers. With the release of Victoria's Zero Emissions Vehicle Roadmap, the Victorian government has outlined its approach to boosting uptake in Victoria, but there is more that can be done. In the next 2 years, publish a statewide electric vehicle charging network strategy. This was in 2021, by the way. Produce charging infrastructure design standards and payment principles. Over the next 5 years, monitor and review the effectiveness of financial incentives encouraging early EV purchases. They did that and then they scrapped it and they fucked over the people selling EVs. That's where we're at now. Within the next 5 years, require all new government fleet vehicles to be EVs where available. Incentivize uptake of zero-emission freight vehicles by reviewing restrictions on zero-emissions freight movements on freight routes. I need someone smarter to understand what that means. I need someone smarter to understand what it means. I'm not sure. Zero emission, okay, incentives uptake of zero emissions freight vehicles by reviewing restrictions on zero emissions freight movements on freight routes. So there's restrictions on zero emissions freight movements on freight routes right now. I'm sorry for the sound of the tapping, by the way. This is an impromptu recording. Okay, so this is the important part. Within the next 5 years, commit to no longer registering new petrol and diesel vehicles in Victoria by 2035 at the latest, through increasingly stringent vehicle registration emissions standards. Alright, our recommendations complement and strengthen the actions of the Victorian government is already taken as a part of the Victoria's Zero Emissions Vehicle Roadmap. Together, these actions will significantly benefit Victorians now and into the future. I'm butchering the reading of this, but I don't know if anyone's actually going to read these documents if I ask them to. Alright, so I'm going to have to just read it. What we found, reducing emissions from passenger vehicles is an essential step in meeting Victoria's government legislated target. Life cycle emissions of a typical battery electric vehicle, taking into account manufacturing, operation under the existing electrical generation mix and disposable, around 20% lower than a typical petrol vehicle. Bullshit. Australia lags. The barrier to consumer uptake to EVs are upfront financial costs, concerns around access to vehicle charging, and it's the fucking fires. There's been an absence of strong action from the Australian government to encourage EV uptake. This was in 2021, before they did. Vehicle manufacturers are not prioritising Australia as an EV market. Jurisdictions around the world that have successfully increased EV uptake have used a mix of policy approaches with a focus on addressing barriers and providing regulatory certainty. Policies that reduce the upfront cost of EVs, improve access to charging infrastructure, and send a clear market signal are likely to have the biggest impact on uptake. Priority actions for the Victorian government. Bear with me. The Victorian government should immediately start to develop a statewide charging network strategy. Within 2 years. The Victorian government should monitor and review the effectiveness of financial incentives encouraging early EV purchases. Did not work. To help reduce road transport emissions in the public sector, the Victorian government should transition the government vehicle fleet to EVs where possible. Alright, hang on. The Victorian government should immediately commit to no longer registering new petrol and diesel vehicles in Victoria by 2035 at the latest. In the lead up to this date, there should be a combination of increasingly strict air quality standards and vehicle registration requirements. This would strengthen the market signal of the EV roadmap, which sets a target of 50% of new light vehicle sales to EVs by 2030. So hang on. They are going to strengthen the market signal for EVs, right? With a combination of increasingly strict air quality standards and vehicle registration requirements, leading up to, in 2035, no longer registering new petrol and diesel vehicles. Alright, so, I'm still reading the rest of this. Let's get back to the initial part, just because I just wanted to point out the fact that they are creating the market signal by making it more expensive to drive gas cars in a cost of living crisis. I need that stressed. Not going to articulate the point right. And, you know, when I edit a video, it takes fucking 3 months. So today I needed to just fucking read it, unfortunately. Where was I up to? Over here. Ah, this is where we're up to. The new vehicle efficiency standard. Okay, I encourage everyone to look through this website. Australia's 2024 emissions projections show these policies put Australia's emissions on track to reach 42% below 2005 levels by 2030. The net zero plan will support the government's broader policy agenda, including ambition for a future made in Australia. We need fossil fuels to make fucking electric vehicles. Anyway. A strong Australian contribution to emissions reduction helps in the global effort to reduce major environmental, health and economic risks from the dangerous effects of climate change. This global effort is essential to protecting Australia from the worst climate impacts. Action will also position Australia to benefit from the global economic shift, seizing new industrial and export opportunities, such as in green metals and hydrogen. Fuck you. We need to refine our green metals. No. We have to refine all of our fucking rare earth elements in Australia. And then we need to pay factory workers like above award rate to turn that into a raw good after it's refined. And then when we sell it out of Australia, we can sell it for a profit and we can kick China out of the fucking way. Fuck you. Fund my drone manufacturing factory. I'm not even in the right headspace to rant about that, but if you've been following the page for a long time, you have heard about it. I need to get enough money to self-fund an end-to-end drone manufacturing factory with Australian resources, refined in Australia, making the fucking chemicals in Australia that we need for the refinement of the shit. Anyway, I like delusions of grandeur. Managing this transition requires coordinated effort across all sectors. All parts of the economy must reduce emissions before sequestering residue emissions to reach net zero. Global goals, technology costs, community choices, and market developments will all shape Australia's transition to net zero greenhouse gas emissions. Given the uncertainty in these factors, A range of plausible pathways will inform the net zero plan. This will help guide the decisions governments and businesses will need to take now. This allows Australia to capitalise on no-regrets opportunities available today, such as low-cost renewable energy. Taking decisive action will put Australia in the best position to respond to new export opportunities, including clean energy, critical minerals, and future fuels. The Climate Change Authority, CCA, will provide independent advice to the government. This will ensure the Net Zero Plan and 2035 targets are based on the best available information. The CCA will provide the government with two pieces of advice. The first piece of advice, the Sector Pathways Review, was published in September 2024 and outlines technology opportunities for decarbonising the different parts of the economy. This review is separate from the policy-focused sectorial decarbonisation plans developed by the government. The second will be advice on a suitable 2035 target. This advice is still under development. The Climate Change Act 2022 requires the government to consider the CCA's advice before deciding on its 2035 emissions reduction target. That's scary. So the Climate Change Act and the Climate Change Authority has to be consulted before our government makes any decisions for the 2035 emissions reduction targets domestically and internationally. Scary. The CCA has consulted and engaged widely in formulating both sets of advice. This advice will reflect the guiding principles from the Climate Change Authority Act 2011. These principles include considering environmental effectiveness, economy efficiency, and boosting economic, employment, and social benefits for all Australians, including in the regions. Sectorial emissions reduction plans and how they relate to the Net Zero Plan. Activities across the Australian economy produce greenhouse gas emissions. The source and nature of emissions varies significantly across and within sectors. The challenges and opportunities of reducing those emissions also vary accordingly. 6 sectorial emissions reduction plans will support the Net Zero Plan. This will enable the plan to capture the full breadth of the economy. These 6 sectors forming the plans are electricity and energy, transport, industry, agriculture and land, resources, the built environment. The Net Zero Plan will bring together the sectorial plans, the whole of the economy strategy to both reach net zero and support our ambition for a future made in Australia. You don't give a shit about that. I've figured out, guys. The mining industry, they ain't shit. They're boring. They've got no ambition. They're not actually doing anything. They just want their paycheck. Our government leaders, they just want their paycheck. They're boring. There's no fucking conspiracy. I think it's pathetic. I think everyone is chasing their paychecks and they're putting society into the ground. But anyway. The Net Zero Plan will bring together sectorial plans and whole of economy strategy to both reach net zero and support our ambition for a future made in Australia. The Net Zero Plan will reflect the importance of cross-cutting issues that are critical to successfully reaching net zero, including skills and workforce and regional opportunities. Sectorial plans will provide more granular analysis of Australia's emissions reduction pathways. They will outline the role of each sector in supporting Australia's transition to net zero. Additionally, they will examine how those sectors can manage trade-offs and opportunities. The six sectors plan will together plot a course for reaching net zero across the economy. There's a name for it. The 6 sectors plan. I have a lisp tonight. Anyway. The Australian government does not intend to set emissions reduction targets for each sector. Some individual sectors may not reach zero emissions. Despite this, all sectors must reduce their emissions from current levels. Otherwise, Australia will not be able to reach its net zero emissions target. Carbon dioxide removal from the atmosphere must balance any remaining emissions. Thinking about if I should go into a rant right here on how to make a carbon capture system. It's not actually that fucking hard. And it's not fucking needed, and they use it for rocket fuel anyway, and they use the saboteur process. I don't need to go down that route. I need to stay on topic. Alright. Consultation, engagement, and technical analysis will be a collaborative effort. It will involve the relevant ministers, other agencies leading work on sectorial plans, and the CCA. This will ensure the government receives robust advice and wide range of insights on sectorial emissions reductions. Together, the sectorial plans cover all major activities across the economy, which either create emissions or remove them from the atmosphere. Each specific economic activity will be allocated to the most relevant sectorial plan to ensure it is fully considered. The electricity and energy plan will cover the supply of electricity, liquid fuels, and gas. It will cover those things. Aluminium waste, chemicals, plastics, iron, steel, cement, food, beverages, manufacturing, metals, refining, smeltering, synthetic greenhouse gases. Everything they've fucked. They've made it harder to build or do everything. The built environment plan will consider residential and commercial buildings as well as urban open spaces and water infrastructure. Agriculture plan will cover livestock, cropping, on-farm energy use, forestry, and land use. Leave our farmers alone. The transport and infrastructure plan will cover light and heavy road transport, rail, maritime, aviation, transport infrastructures, embodied emissions. The resources plan will cover oil, gas extraction, processing, liquefaction, coal mining, mining of metals, non-metal minerals, on-site processing of ores, resource exploration support services. Okay, this is boring, but we might come across something interesting. Sector plans will consider any cross-cutting issues that are relevant to multiple sectors. Each plan will focus on aspects of the issue that are most applicable to that specific sector. Valuing emissions reductions, such as considering a circular economy, sustainable finance, carbon markets, and embodied emissions. Removing blockers to action, such as supporting jobs and skills, research science, and innovation, and an emissions impact analysis. Sounds good. Growing social equity through the transition, such as considering resilience and adaptation, transition impacts and opportunities, regional impacts and benefits, gender equality, and First Nations engagement and opportunity. What does this have to do with the climate or net zero? Anyway, working internationally, such as through supply chains, national security, international trade, law and relationships, and carbon leakage. The sectorial plans will consider enabling technologies. These support emissions reductions or removals and may be relevant to multiple sectors. Atmospheric carbon removal, bioenergy, carbon capture, use and storage, electrification, energy efficiency, gas for firming renewables, hydrogen, low carbon liquid fuels, lightweight and low carbon materials, zero and low emissions refrigerant. The government recognises several major steps to decarbonising the economy. These will apply differently across each sector. They're going to kill our economy with this. But anyway, depending on the availability of cost-effective low-emission technologies, these steps are increasing the materials and energy efficiency of the economy, including through circular economy principles. Sounds good. Decarbonising and growing the electricity grid using renewables to unlock greater decarbonisation, they love that word, across other sectors by electrifying activities where possible. Bullshit. switching remaining activities to hydrogen, low carbon, liquid fuels, and other replacements for fossil fuels. I don't want to rant about how we can get access to electricity, but it can be solved so many different ways. If we all had personal hydro generators for our household, they'd never allow it. I think it'd work. I'm a crazy person though. Anyway, you could also use fat people on a treadmill. That could generate power. But and then right, the fat people, they end up not fat by the end of it. So they're not. It's not like a gulag. They're not there forever, right? It's just it'd be an incentive to not be fat, and then fat people could power everything. If you want clean energy, I have legitimate ways we could power the world that I can't rant about right here. But anyway. Switching remaining activities to hydrogen, low carbon, liquid fuels, and other replacements for fossil fuels. Innovation to expand low and zero emission technologies, options, and reduce their costs. Scaling up nature-based and technological carbon sequestration. My God. Investors, industry, unions, and other stakeholders have called for a clear and credible plan. The Net Zero Plan, a sector plan, will provide the detailed policy and frameworks needed to guide investment in the transition. Determining the 2035 emissions reduction targets. So somewhere in here is the banning of your fuel mowers and your petrol vehicles. But right now they're claiming just new petrol vehicles, but they haven't mentioned in this that they're going to be banning, fuel mowers. But if they are, you can see them doing it. They are, and Australia is going to support them. So it's going to happen. Anyway, that was the entire reason I did this impromptu, terrible fucking video going through stuff, to really get to the bottom of it myself. I'm kind of reminded of the plan they have for us. It's not our plan. It's the plan they have for us. Anyway. As part of developing the Net Zero Plan, the Australian government will set Australia's 2035 targets. Under the terms of the Paris Agreement, a country must update its nationally determined contribution, NDC, every 5 years. Each new target is to be more ambitious than the last. This is to support the global goal of holding the increase in the global average temperature to well below 2 degrees. The analysis informing our pathways to net zero by 2050 will also provide insights into potential progress along the way. This information will help identify an appropriate medium-term target. And now, to get there, other relevant considerations. This information will help identify appropriate medium-term target and how to get there. Other relevant considerations include global trade investment trends, pace and scale of technological development of new industries in Australia, including future made in Australia. Bullshit. Our ability to play a positive global role through ambition. They don't have ambition. We have $722 trillion worth of, harvestable elements in our ground. $722 trillion. We could make the Saudis look like peasants. Okay, they don't have ambition. Anyway. Our abilities play a positive global role through ambition and practical delivery. I hate them. I shouldn't hate anyone, but anyway. Under the Climate Change Act 2022, the CCA provides its advice to government on emissions reduction targets. This advice will consider how Australia can deliver on its fair share of global emissions reduction, including taking account of international considerations, including other countries' net zero pathways and approaches, well-being, including impacts on physical health, environment, First Nation peoples. Region-specific impacts will also be considered. Economic impacts, including opportunities and costs for the Australian economy. Development of the net zero and sectorial plans. And 2035 target is a whole of government effort. The portfolio minister with responsibility for the sector co-leads each sectorial plan with the Minister for Climate Change and Energy. This ensures ministers with the authority and best knowledge of each sector are leading the relevant emissions reduction efforts. Okay, I'm not going to read all of this. I think so. The interesting, I guess, so not interesting. It's so hard to read this, right? But infrastructure, transport, regional development, communications, and the arts, the climate change, energy, the environment, and water. These two fucking ministers are in charge of transport and infrastructure sectorial plans for the net zero 2035 target. Alright. The Minister for Climate Change and Energy is leading development of the net zero plan as well as the electricity and energy sectorial plan. He will work closely, it's a lot of work for one guy, with the other portfolio ministers to help align and deliver all sector plans. The Treasurer will play a role in ensuring consistency in economic assumptions across the plans. The Treasurer will also be working with the Minister for Climate Change and Energy to assess the whole of economy considerations. Circular economy principles under the remit of the Minister for Environment and Water will be embedded across all the plans. The Net Zero Economy Authority plays a key role in informing development of the plans. This authority promotes orderly and positive economic change as the world transitions to net zero. This authority promotes orderly and positive economic change. It worries me when they tell us we'll be orderly. This work ensures Australia, its regions, and its workers realise and share the benefits of the net zero economy. The authority has a strong focus on regional engagement and transition planning. It provides input and guidance on the design of strategies and policies within the net zero and sectorial plans. The government is undertaking a transparent, inclusive, and coordinated approach developing the net zero plan. To do this, we'll engage with communities. If they'd let us vote on this, is what they do. We should vote on this again, and that would prove this was a democracy. I'd like that. This consultation will ensure the plan is robust. Bullshit. Fuck you, bullshit. Key milestones in the net zero plan. By mid-2023, net zero planning process announced. March 2024, consultation engagement processes for whole of economy. 2025, provides 2035 targets advice. This is the government for you. What's our plan? We will give you advice in 2025. We're going to leave everything up in the air, absolutely derail entire fucking industries. But, we're going to do it with a snap of our fingers, not anything else. Oh my god. Alright. Portfolio ministers responsible for each sectorial plan are leading engagement on their sectors. This engagement will support government to thoroughly understand the sources of emissions in each sector. I don't feel like reading the rest of this. Key consultation processes for the net zero plan 2023. I'm not doing it. The plan is that they're going to provide a plan. Plan is we're planning. Yeah, targeted consultation. Other policies and programs that relate to the net zero and sectorial plans. To work out how Australia can reduce emissions to net zero, the government must consider the effects of existing policies. Key existing and proposed policies are already having a significant effect. This is just bullshit. The 2024 emissions estimates Australia's 2024 emissions estimates showed that these policies put Australia on track to reach a reduction of 42.7 below. They're repeating themselves. The sector plans will take into account the emissions reduction impact of existing policies. The plans will then present new policies to drive further emissions reductions across the economy. The sectorial plans will take into account the emissions reduction impact of existing policies. The plans will then present new policies to drive further emissions reductions across the economy. So this is where they're coming for your mowers, folks. The Australian government's official emissions projections will help to model the effects of new policies on emissions over time. This will help to identify areas for the further action to continue reducing Australia's emissions. It will also identify where new policies will be needed in the future. The government will leverage the perspectives heard through consultation on major policies, especially for the industry and resource sector plans. This will avoid duplicating engagement. There are several processes from which the government can draw insights. The Capacity Investment Scheme will deliver renewable electricity generation and storage. The Future Gas Strategy will examine how we can get the supply and demand balance right for the Australian household. The Carbon Leakage Review will identify how the government can further support Australian industries' international competitiveness. I'll just be nice. The new Vehicle Efficiency Standard will provide a greater choice of the most efficient cars and utes. A greater choice. This will include petrol and diesel engines, hybrids and electric vehicles. This will help deliver a cleaner, light... What? This will include petrol and diesel engine hybrids and electric vehicles. But they're banning them. So they've already said this has to go. So they're lying to us here. I think that's it, right? Because they don't want to say that the plan is to make us fucking walk around. I don't care if I sound crazy. They don't want to say that's what the plan is. But the document that we were looking at earlier, the advisement that they've taken on in Victoria and the rest of Australia, to make the policies, right, will make registration harder and harder and more costly, to make a market signal that shows that investment should come in for electric vehicles, apparently. That's a shit plan, but that's their plan. Oh my god, we made it to the end. Okay, look. I hope I proved something today. I hope I proved something. Let's go back to this one. Let's go back to... Where's the important part? Okay. The Victorian government should immediately commit to no longer registering new petrol and diesel vehicles in Victoria by 2035 at the latest. In the lead up to this date, there should be a combination of increasingly strict air quality standards and vehicle registration requirements. This would strengthen the market signal of the EV roadmap, which sets a target for 50% of new light vehicle sales to be EVs by 2030. Look, that's their plan, right? No longer registering new petrol and diesel vehicles. And they will claim this means that it just applies to new models, right? But they're the fucking government, and this is vague enough that they could also take it as... Oh, okay, look, people fact check me. This is a report that the government is listening to and has changed law around. So, like, they are listening to the groups that say that we need to no longer register new petrol and diesel vehicles. This is in Victoria by 2035 at the latest. So, here's hoping the rest of Australia it fucking pulls its head out of its ass. Hopefully, all of Australia pulls its head out of its ass. I think if the Australian government doesn't change what they're doing, then this is what Australia is going to look like. Alright? We're going to be fucking nothing. I didn't have a quicker example. There's my homepage. I hope I can't be hacked with this. And I'll be interested to see if this video gets any views at all. By rights, it wouldn't. It's funny because I've put some important bits of information in here. Alright, like this kind of is evidence to support that, like, whether or not they're coming for the fuel mowers is really not even a bloody conversation. They're coming for your ute. Look, I'm in the knife making industry. I was, right? That industry has been destroyed. I'm fucking scared of the government. I have been making quarterstaffs for the last little bit. I've completely disarmed myself. I've gotten rid of everything. I don't trust them. Right? So I've gone above and beyond. I don't think anyone else should get rid of everything sharp. Within reason. Kept the kitchen knives. But I'm pretty sure that they might just arrest people for hunting knives soon. I don't know what the point of this is. Australia, you need to wake the fuck up. It's called the totalitarian toe step. With every new law, there will be a Save the Puppies campaign. We will hear the Save the Puppies campaign and accept the law. The law will take a little bit more of our freedom. And that will repeat 1 billion more times. It's the totalitarian toe step. So even if there isn't a grand conspiracy or an evil overlord, a Save the Puppies campaign's popped up. That's any campaign that's like too good to ignore. Like right now, Jack's Law features a really sad dad that lost his son who was stabbed, which sucks, right? Because of that, knife laws are changing. But like a Save the Puppies campaign pops up. So we accept new laws that take more freedoms. These freedoms are never given back, right? The security is never eased. This is the totalitarian toe step. I want faith that Australia will fix it. But I found that the majority of Australians think that what I think is stupid. Okay, they think that hacksaw blades should be a prohibited item. Like, even though it turns out that was an internal policy by Bunnings, just via pressure from the government, people still think it's a great idea to prohibit hacksaw blades. Some of the people got it wrong. I think they all got it wrong. I think I fucking get stuff wrong. I heard a quote, and it's like, if you are smart, then right now you probably should be confused. I don't know what to do with that, because the Dunning-Kruger effect. If I think I'm smart, then I'm probably dumb. But then, I do think I'm dumb, but maybe I'm smart. Alright, I'm going to bed. That's the end of the rant. So we have, we're on this page, right? And that was, clicked on that first link there from this page. That is after reading all of this and clicking that top link from this bullshit. This is what I'm trying to prove. Queensland Government aims to accelerate transition to zero-emission vehicles by no longer registering new petrol and diesel vehicles by 2035. Don't trust the AI over you. Find evidence, or just warn the Victorians. This is where I'm at now. Alright. So, let's get back to where I want it to be. And over here. Alright. Zero emission vehicle strategy. To contribute to a cleaner future, the transport status quo must be challenged, and we need to make sure that Queensland is in the best position to capitalise on the clean transport revolution. That is why I am proud to deliver Queensland's zero-emission vehicle strategy. So that is their plan in Queensland, but they might just be fucking being a lot more sneaky. We'll see. The EV strategy is both vehicle type and fuel agnostic. It extends our focus beyond electric vehicles to the opportunities that zero-emission technologies and manufacturing can bring, and how we can maximise these opportunities for Queensland. I'd love to be wrong. I'd love to be wrong about the government as a whole, both sides. Maybe this is what they care about. That's why we're reading it all, right? Globally, more zero-emission and low-emission transport options are emerging. We're seeing this occur across a range of transport modes, from passenger cars, e-bikes, e-scooters, public transport solutions, and even heavy vehicles. The Queensland Government has set a target to reach zero net emissions by 2050, and our Queensland Climate Action Plan details how we will reach this target. As transport is one of the main contributors to Queensland's emissions, we have significant responsibility to examine alternative and cleaner, more sustainable options to move people and goods around our state. Queensland remains committed to being at the forefront of a zero-emission transport future. Building on the achievements of Australia's first electric vehicle strategy, the Future Electric Queensland Electric Vehicles Strategy 2017, this EV strategy sets out our pathway forward to make Queensland a clean transport powerhouse. Developed with the input from 4,700 Queenslanders and in consultation with state and local government, this is shit, right? Because whatever it was, we figured out the name before. QCC or CCA or whatever the hell is the one that is inputting it, right? Developed with the input of 4,700 Queenslanders. This is all bullshit, right? That's bullshit. This 2050 initiative has not come from 4,700 Queenslanders. The government is coming in with a formulated plan, and then they're interviewing people and saying that supports their fucking plan. Alright, anyway. Right, because developed with the input of 4,700 Queenslanders. I'm going to do it. I'm going to have to find it. Is it this one? Oh, where is it? I'm not going to be able to find it. God damn it. Don't worry. This EV strategy sets out our pathway forward to make Queensland a clean transport powerhouse, developed with the input from 4,700 Queenslanders and in consultation with state and local government, transport and energy industries, and the environmental and sustainability sectors. It is a strategy shaped by Queenslanders for Queenslanders. It's shaped by the globalist agenda, and I say that ready to be mocked. I remember at the start of the video I was saying they ain't shit, but that's where the 2050 initiative has come from, and the only reason I don't give a shit about it, and I don't think you should either, is not enough countries will care about it. or do care about it to make our intentions have any difference. So we shouldn't destroy our economy and our people for a stupid goal. We have other ambitious goals we can go for, right? $722 trillion worth of fucking mineral assets in Australia. Like, we could give $1 billion to everyone and then be the richest superpower forever. No, this is, I've recently become patriotic about Australia, and you should try it out. It's pretty cool. I have hope for our future in the people. I think we need to give up on the fucking government. I think we pay tax, we follow the law, we treat their rules like invisible barriers that we just negotiate around. Right? I'm not an anarchist anymore. We can't fight the government. So we pay them off like the fucking mafia they are, and then forget about them and work on the solutions ourselves. Anyway, shit. I'm ranting. To realise the ambitious targets set out in this EV strategy, the Palachek government is also developing the Zero Net Emissions for Transport Roadmap and Action Plan to provide the strategic direction and vision for the decarbonised Queensland transport sector. They better tell us what's in this article. Or not article, whatever the fuck is this report. The EV strategy builds on the success of the Queensland Electric Superhighway charging infrastructure and existing incentives for electric vehicle motorists in Queensland in the form of lowest rate of registration and lowest stamp duty concessions. Maybe Queensland has decided to go with reducing the cost of registration for EVs instead of increasing the cost of registration for petrol vehicles. That'd be great. I have no faith in them, so I don't believe it. I think they're just hiding well. But anyway, it signals a fundamental shift in how we move around. Queenslanders will benefit from greater choice in zero-emission vehicles and other net zero-emission transport options, with targeted incentives, infrastructure, a stable energy system, and partnerships that build awareness and confidence in the transition. The Honourable Mark MP. So these are just 4 words that I'm fucking reading. God damn it. But there might be something that we need to read. As we travel toward our 2050 net zero emissions target, decarbonisation of transport is one of the clearest routes we can take, and zero emissions vehicles are central to our strategy. Our state is a unique combination of energy asset ownership and abundant renewable energy, which positions us as a national leader in developing clean energy transport solutions. It's a bunch of buzzwords, all of it. I feel like I'm reading an amalgamation of nothing. Queensland has been clear in our commitments: 50% renewables by 2030, a 30% reduction in emission by the same year, and zero net emissions by 2050. Achieving these targets and ensuring continued growth of renewable energy and low-carbon technology will require a significant uptake of electric vehicles. The upcoming Queensland Energy Plan will outline how we will contribute to our targets. The electric vehicles, they won't fucking help. Especially while, we're not refining any of the minerals in the fucking first world, right? Neodymium, right, which is needed for magnets, which is needed for motors. It is mined here, and then it's sent to Malaysia for processing, and they pump the radioactive fucking byproducts underground. Safely, imagine some bunny ears. They safely pump it underground, right? We're all connected by the ocean, so it's not fucking safe, right? And then Australia gets those renewables, the neodymium, back, and then they reseal it on from there, still in the raw form, without actually turning it into anything. Funnily enough, there is a mining company. I want to say Blight, but that's definitely not their name. But there's a mining company that has put up $1 billion of their own money to try to refine neodymium in Western Australia. And they might yet get fucked. And I hope they succeed. And it's funny, right? Because that will be good for the environment. And the mining companies are doing it and not even talking about it. The fucking government isn't making them do it. The government's not going to help. I hate being distracted, but that's why I need to become privately wealthy to be able to achieve my goal of making sure that Australia manufactures drones end to end, right, from our resources and our chemicals, with our workforce and a fucking AI factory, because the world's fucking obsessed. With my AI factory, you will be able to actually remove the AI. It's going to be a shell, which means that we can create jobs as a product if I'm successful. Holy shit, I want to become a billionaire so bad. You know, I might be able to actually not be evil. I can guarantee no one else is going to build a factory that has it so that you can remove the automation so that humans are needed if we end up needing to be needed again. So far off track. As we transition to a low... Where are we? Driving increased demand for uptake of EV creates flow-on demand for battery manufacturing. We're so far too through. As we travel toward 2050 net zero emission target, decarbonisation of transport is one of the clearest routes we can take. Our state has a unique combination of energy asset ownership and abundant and renewable energy, which positions us as a national leader in developing clean energy transport solutions. Queensland has been clear in our commitments: 50% renewables by 2030, a 30% reduction in emissions by the same year, and zero net emissions by 2050. Achieving these targets and ensuring continued growth of renewables energy and low carbon technology will require a significant uptake of electric vehicles. The upcoming Queensland Energy Plan will outline how we will contribute to our targets. An effective EV strategy must consider several issues: vehicle interactivity with built environments, planning for new developments, investment in electricity infrastructure, tariffs that reward motorists for charging their vehicles in a way that supports more renewables, expansion of the Queensland Government's fleet of EVs to ensure pipeline of quality. This strategy will do that. Developing a low-carbon economy through renewable energy and low-emissions electricity requires us to focus on attracting clean industrial investment in the resource industry and manufacturing sector to Queensland. Sorry to say, the Australian government's decided that Western Australia is our manufacturing sector, so investment is not coming here. Thank you, pals. Okay. Driving increased demand for uptake of EVs creates flow-on demand for battery manufacturing and resource extraction in our state. As we transition to a low-carbon future, we acknowledge the fossil fuel industry in Queensland remains a significant employer. Those livelihoods in the communities they support are important, and we commit to working with those companies who have announced their intentions to transition to emissions-free fuels or low-emission fuels. Job cuts. That's what that means. Job cuts. A lot of job cuts. For the greater good, they say. We also commit to working closely with workers and unions to protect their livelihoods and communities as we transform... this should read. We also commit to working closely with workers and unions as we destroy their livelihoods and communities in the transformation of the energy sector. That's what it should say. Anyway, ultimately, this strategy is not just about supporting the continued uptake and use of renewable energy in Queensland. It's about creating more jobs, stimulating economic growth, and setting up our state for a prosperous future. That is Honourable Mick D. Brenny MP, Minister for Energy. The other guy was Honourable Mark Bailey MP, Minister for Transport. Look, the second guy, I hope he was in the army. He looks tough. First guy has a really long neck. Anyway. Alright. We're not even fucking into it yet. Oh, do we dare read the executive summary? The Queensland Government is committed to reducing Queensland's emissions. We aim to achieve powering Queensland with 50% renewable energy by 2030. A 30% reduction on 2005 emissions levels by 2030. Zero net emissions by 2050. Hang on, need to drink some water. Alright. The energy and transport sectors are the two largest carbon dioxide emitters in Queensland. Focusing on these sectors will maximise the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions and will be a major contributor to achieving net zero emissions by 2050. Queensland's Zero Emission Vehicle Strategy 2022-2032 sets out our vision and strategic direction towards EVs over the next 10 years. Associated action plans will detail the key initiatives and actions that will shift Queensland to EVs. This includes actions that enable the development of alternative fuels and new and emerging clean technologies. Actions will create jobs for Queenslanders through local manufacturing opportunities and emerging EV industries. A key driver to reducing emissions includes increasing the proportion of EVs across all transport modes and sectors. This needs to be balanced with keeping electricity costs low. You can't have both. Providing a stable electricity network and increasing renewable energy. You know, we could do this. Everyone would hate my fucking solution. But, we need those nuclear generators that NASA is using to power their fucking shit in space. Nuclear generators. We haven't heard about anything going wrong. We wouldn't hear about it, but we haven't heard anything about those mini nuclear generators going wrong. If you haven't heard of that, just put in NASA patent mini nuclear generator, and then you can go down a rabbit hole. Anyway, a key driver to reducing emissions includes increasing the proportion of EVs across all transport modes and sectors. This needs to be balanced with keeping electricity costs low, providing a stable electricity network, increasing in... I already read that. Forgive me. We will inform Queenslanders about opportunities that EVs offer. Roast some marshmallows. Encourage Queenslanders to choose EVs over internal combustion engine vehicles. See, I want to know what they're going to do to encourage us to choose EVs. I mean, is that encouragement going to be we're confiscating your petrol vehicle? And everyone will think I'm crazy until they do, you know? There's a reason to rant about government overreach, even if they have good intentions. I don't think they're gonna fucking take our cars. I do think they're gonna try to take everyone's cars. But anyway, inform Queenslanders about opportunities. Encourage Queenslanders to choose EVs. Support available and affordable EVs in Queensland. Review regulation and policies to ensure the market facilitates Queenslanders to switch to EVs. That is where they do exactly what Victoria said they were going to do, I bet. Partner with industry to inform Queenslanders about using energy in a smarter, more cost-efficient and environmentally sustainable way. Consider an appropriate tariff designed to reward EV owners to charge in an optimal way. Lead the development of a national approach to zero-emission buildings to support their integration into the built environment. Identify ways to ensure planning of new developments considers electric vehicle use, storage and charging. Consider the required electrical system augmentation to facilitate higher uptake of electric vehicles, support appropriate and accessible charging, ensure government policy facilitate and incentivise Queenslanders. Ensure government policies settings facilitate and incentivise. Ensure government policy settings facilitate and incentivise Queenslanders to switch to EVs. Make the most of research and emerging technologies to deliver jobs of the future. Enhance supply chains and skills, training and capability across renewables and emerging EV technologies. Support new jobs and coordinated transition. Work with industry and all levels of government to prepare for and leverage global shifts in technologies that improve the way we travel. Cleaner, greener, integrated transport and energy network. Remove barriers to enable all Queenslanders, industries, communities to benefit from EVs, support the uptake and development of EV technologies, integrate EV technology into energy systems, support renewable energy and hydrogen industry, create sustainable, accessible, affordable EV economy. Okay. The EV strategy complements the Queensland Transport Strategy, blah, blah, blah. Queensland Procurement Policy in Queensland Indigenous has also been developed with consideration for other strategies currently under development. Queensland Zero Net Emissions for Transport Roadmap, Queensland Energy Plan, Queensland Resource Industry Development Plan, Queensland... It's just bullshit. We're going on. We're skipping that part. Yeah. The Queensland Transport Strategy provides a 30-year strategic direction for transport to achieve accessible and convenient transport, safe journeys, seamless and personalised journeys, efficient, reliable and productive transport, sustainable, resilient and livable communities. Queensland Climate Action Plan provides a way forward for Queensland to meet our ambitious but achievable climate targets while ensuring Queensland's industry, workers, communities, including First Nations, rural and regional, see economic benefits from new technologies and growing markets for low-carbon products. Queensland Hydrogen Industry Plan creates economic growth from hydrogen, new jobs, new export opportunities. Queensland Procurement Policy it's the government's overarching policy for the procurement of goods and services. Procurement needs to deliver with probity. It is what that says. Procurement needs to deliver with probity. Procurement needs to deliver with probity and value for money to advance our economic, environmental and social objectives for the community over the long term. Policy aims to focus on economic benefit to Queensland, maximise Queensland supplies, opportunity to participate, support regional and remote community economies, support disadvantaged Queenslanders, stimulate ICT sector and drive innovation. Queensland Indigenous Procurement Policy is the same thing. The net zero emissions for transport roadmap will provide a plan for the transport sector to demonstrate and deliver actions to reduce transport emissions across all modes, provide strategic direction and vision for decarbonised Queensland transport sector, demonstrate the Queensland Government continued leadership to reduce both tailpipe and transport infrastructure emissions, outline the transport sector contribution to our 2030-2050 emission targets. Taking action to reduce transport sector emissions will unlock opportunities that improve the overall transport system, enhancing passenger and active transport options, embracing EVs, and harnessing new or emerging technologies. Oh my god. They just waffle about shit. I know I do, but they do it more. Alright. Taking action to reduce sector emissions will unlock... I don't know, dude. I don't know. Next one. In addition to outlining how we will achieve our 50% renewable energy target by 2030, the Queensland Energy Plan will position the state as a leader in integrating decentralised energy sources and EVs into our electricity grid. The Queensland Energy Plan will support delivery of firm zero-emission electricity for transport at a price that makes it not only affordable but attractive for Queenslanders. As part of the Queensland Energy Plan currently under development, we will consider various ways to integrate EVs within our electricity grid. Amending building codes to require new houses and apartment buildings to be EV ready. My God. That's gonna do wonders for cost of living. Amending building codes to require new houses and apartment buildings to be EV ready, including the capability to integrate bi-directional charging capability. Developing tariffs that reward motorists for charging their vehicles during the day. That's really handy. Investing in network augmentation to support the deployment of charging infrastructure in urban areas. Rolling out charging infrastructure and optimised tariffs for Queensland Government publicity-owned sites and facilities, including car parks, hospital and health service campuses that don't tariff the hospitals. Developing a local value chain around EV industry. Our priorities. Priority 1, encouraging cleaner, greener transport modes. Building EV manufacturing, facilitating supportive EV structure, driving towards renewables and smart charging. Partnerships, innovation and advocacy. Need for national leadership. The strategy sets the direction for Queensland's strength for ongoing dialogue with the Australian Government for greater national leadership of EV policy. The Australian Government has committed Australia to net zero emissions by 2050. The Future Fuels and Vehicle Strategy 2021 outlines a technology-led approach to reducing emissions in the transport sector with a focus on charging infrastructure. National leadership is important because it provides the direction that contributes to overall transport emission reduction and helps Australia to overcome barriers in the shift to EVs through improved vehicle emission standards, including the adoption of a carbon dioxide standard similar to the international markets. To other international markets, which ones? Improved vehicle emission standards, including the adoption of a carbon dioxide standard similar to other international markets. Improved national fuel quality standards, market support to attract international vehicle manufacturers, adoption of vehicle emission control technologies, luxury car tax and second-hand vehicle import regulations on EVs. Adoption of vehicle emission control technologies, market support to attract international vehicle manufacturers, improved national fuel quality standards, luxury car tax and second-hand vehicle import regulations on EVs. National construction code requirements facilitate provision of appropriate EV charging infrastructure to future-proof new residential and commercial developments. Renewable energy procurement and manufacturing policy. Fringe benefit tax legislation to encourage purchase of EVs over ICE vehicles. Some of these measures are out of the state and territory government's control, and we need all levels of government to work together to achieve them. Where possible, we will align Queensland's priority targets and actions with those of other states and territories to help provide certainty for industry and the market. 100% of eligible Q-flat passenger vehicles to be zero emissions. Every new TransLink funded bus added will be zero emissions. 50% of new passenger vehicle sales to be zero emission vehicles by 2030. 100% of new passenger vehicle sales to be zero emission vehicles by 2036. 100% of new passenger vehicles sales to be zero emission vehicles by 2036. So, like, out of everything, that is the closest to them belying the plan to remove all petrol and diesel vehicles from the road by 2036. Well, no, of course, no. New passenger vehicle sales to be zero emission. See, it's too broad. 100% of new passenger vehicle sales. Because new sales implies the future, I think, they will say that this only applies to new cars. That's still bullshit. We should still complain about that. But I guess I don't know. I think they're going to go all the way with it. I think they're going to make people fucking walk. I don't. They're going to try, though. Anyway. After significant growth over the past decade, the global EV market broke through over 10 million. I don't need to read the state of the fucking EV market. We don't need to. Paired with ICE vehicles, EVs typically have higher upfront prices and lower running and maintenance costs. It has higher maintenance costs. At least its address is more expensive. Down here, EV projections by the Commonwealth Scientific and Industrial Research Organisation for the Australian Energy Market Operator in 2021 assume the short-range EVs will reach purchase price parity with ICE light vehicles between 2025 and 2035. Because operating an EV is generally cheaper than an ICE vehicle, total cost of ownership parity may occur before this date. Zero-emission vehicle types. Here's some pretty pictures. Oh, we have a range of different modes of EV to choose from. Fuck off. Moving to zero-emission vehicles, changing the way we travel. This strategy supports many zero-emission transport modes and consumer and industry choices to improve the emission-free ways we can travel in our everyday lives. It also recognizes the different transport and vehicle needs of our diverse regional, rural, and urban environments. To reduce transport emissions and improve network efficiency, we must change how we currently use the Queensland Transport Network across both the movement of people and goods. This means having more people use active travel or zero-emission cars, buses, ferries and trains, while shifting from ICE vehicles to EVs helps to reduce emissions. Improving congestion also relies on a shift to public transport. It also means supporting the movement of freight and goods with zero-emission technologies as they mature, such as zero-emission trains, shipping, and in the future, aviation. There's a reason we don't have electric fucking planes. It's because you need X amount of time of fuel left over, and the batteries aren't at a point where we have the range to be able to have the flight time left over at the end of the flight for it to be safe in case the pilot has to fly to another airport. Ask me how I know. Anyway. We are also seeing changes in... Wait, did I skip? No, I didn't. We are also seeing changes in when and how we use transport as a result of changes in society. An example of this, the increase in people working from home, buying goods online instead of in-store, mainly in response to COVID-19. Globally, as new technologies emerge, people are changing their purchasing and personal transport habits by sharing personal vehicles, using ride-sharing services, moving to e-bikes, using drones for freight and passengers. You'll never allow it, don't fucking lie. Using automated vehicles, using in-vehicle tracking and monitoring systems. Vehicle technologies will continue to evolve and improve. I wish I could be paid to write these, man. I could write it so well. They're just waffling shit. Rains are coming, by the way. I hope not too much rain, because then you won't be able to hear me. Alright. Oh my god. Do they think we're idiots? They've written it like we're fucking idiots. Benefits of zero-emission vehicles. You don't even... Look, the good thing about electric vehicles is there's less parts. And Occam Razor says the solution with the least amount of parts is the correct solution. So I inherently believe electric vehicles are a step above combustion. everything else about them is terrible. Not terrible, but not fucking good enough for how hard it is to get the lithium. I think. I don't know, man. I need to hire some scientists when I get some money. This is my opinion. Alright. Oh, they're going to teach us about consumers of EVs. There are many reasons why Queenslanders will want to shift to EVs. Because we're going to make them. We're going to make them, and that's how they're going to want to, because we're going to tell them that the 2019 report found that the cause of death of over 1,700 Australians per year is from motor vehicle air pollution. It won't change. Shifting from ICE vehicles to EVs will benefit Queensland cities and regional communities. So they want them all to be EVs. Again, this all started because I looked into, are they really going to ban combustion mowers, right? And if they fully plan on banning combustion vehicles, or look, if they want 100% of combustion, they want 100% of vehicles on the road to be EVs, or just not combustion engines. Or are they all combustion? You know what I fucking mean. Just bullshit, okay? They are taking your mowers. And the proof is that they're going to try to fucking take your cars. And Australia will say yes. And they're going to tell me I'm an idiot for, being worried about all of this shit. But all of this shit is happening all across the world. In, like, every Western fucking country. At the same time. Like, fucking... Man, Texas has a new knife law where you're not allowed to carry a knife that's over 5.5 inches. I'm sure there's some sort of, like, stipulation attached, but the fact that they have any regulation on knives in a place that has fucking guns is so stupid. Maybe, I think. I take that, invisible editor, take that point out. If that point wasn't taken out, then my invisible editor did not hear me. Or he doesn't exist. Alright, so it's just bullshit, dude. It's just bullshit. Overcoming challenges to EVs. Growing local energy supply. The EVs will play a major role in shifting to a zero-emission future. The Queensland Government acknowledges that we need to act now to help identify and remove barriers and overcome potential challenges. This is hindered by a lack of national policy supporting the shift to EVs, such as reluctance by the Australian Government to subsidise the purchase price. Like other nations. Barriers. Higher purchase price than normal vehicles. Perceived lack of accessible charging, refueling infrastructure, limited EV model availability, low public awareness of the benefits of owning... They don't mention the fires, do they? Isn't that interesting? Look, it's all bullshit. It's all bullshit. A customer journey. 63% of petrol diesel owners want to know more about information about EVs. Perceived upfront costs are likely a barrier. They just have a sales funnel for you. I'm not the salesman for that job. Opportunities for charging, choice, equity, and affordability. Well, I just don't care about that. Don't care about that. I'm failing reading it all right now. Manufacturing and supply chain opportunities. Sourcing locally made vehicles support Queensland manufacturing industry, and the use of renewable energy supports our renewable industry in urban and regional in Queensland. This is nothing. I'm reading nothing. The focus on EVs provides various opportunities now and into the future for Queensland businesses. Queensland is already manufacturing zero-emission buses. and the opportunities for buses are only set to grow as EV uptake takes off in Queensland. We're not building the fucking buses, right? We're building like 10% of the buses and getting the other shit from every other country. I know because I want to build fucking EV tolls in Australia. But anyway, the draft Queensland Resources Industry Development Plan. The draft Queensland Resources Industry Development Plan proposes the development of a Queensland battery industry strategy. My God, our proposition proposes a strategy. I don't think I need to read the rest of this. Priority 1, encouraging cleaner, greener transport. Priority 2, building EV manufacturing. 3, facilitate supportive EV infrastructure, driving towards renewable and smart charging. Partnerships, innovation, advocacy. Make it easy for Queenslanders to select EV over ICE. Encourage people to walk, ride, bike, or use an e-bike. Micro-mobility, support and enable EV uptake and technology, set clear direction for supporting emerging technologies solutions to move us to cleanest shit. We have set a target of 50% new light vehicle sales to be EVs by 2030. To help us reach this target, we propose a target of 200,000 light EVs in Queensland fleet by 2027. Based on the current vehicles in 2022, this accounts for 4.4% of the vehicle market. They're very far behind. Further demonstrating Queensland's leadership to transition to EVs, we'll aim for 100% light EV sales by 2036. So they're not going to give us a choice in this, alright? Okay, we will aim for 100% EV sales by 2036. Longer term, 100% of our light vehicle fleet will be zero emissions by 2050. We will monitor measures to start a graduated ICE vehicle phase out. Listen to this. This is what we wanted. This is what I wanted. Come on, fucking highlight this. It's not what I wanted, but it's what I need to fucking read here. We will monitor measures to start a graduated ICE vehicle phase-out. We will also look at new opportunities to further increase EV uptake to meet our greenhouse gas emission targets and recycle ICE vehicles and eventually batteries to support the circular economies. They're gonna fucking recycle our combustion fucking cars. Bro, can the hoodlums get pissed at this? Please? We will monitor measures to start a graduating ICE vehicle phase-out. We will also look at new opportunities to further increase EV uptake to meet our greenhouse gas emission targets, and recycle ICE vehicles and eventually batteries to support the circular economy. Holy shit. Look. Sorry about that sound. I only get afraid of this stuff. I get afraid of this stuff because... beautiful darling friend is calling. I'm gonna have to stop this. Catch you soon. Quickest breakdown that I can give. Thank God the Victorian government don't cover their tracks as well. They're gonna commit to no longer registering new petrol and diesel vehicles in Victoria by 2035. We will monitor measures to start a graduated ICE vehicle phase-out. They are aiming for 100% EV sales by 2036. 100% of the vehicle fleet will be zero emissions by 2050. The Victorian government should immediately commit to no longer registering new petrol and diesel vehicles in Victoria by 2035 at the latest. In the lead up to this date, there should be a combination of increasingly strict air quality standards and vehicle registration requirements. This would strengthen the market signal of the EV roadmap. So they're going to increase vehicle registration requirements in the lead up to no longer registering petrol and diesel vehicles. I don't bloody trust them.